Hey everyone, welcome back. Tonight we're diving into a true story, widely shared across Japan, told in a calm voice because panic helps nobody. The title asks a simple question with dangerous weight. Can you refuse a ghost's invitation? Before the night answers, step into a city that never sleeps. Welcome back to Paranormal Asia. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Tonight's story follows Aya, a quiet office worker, and Kenji, her older brother, who rarely believes in ghost tales. Their ordinary nights turn unsettling when an invitation arrives, one that can't be easily ignored. Hey everyone. Aya lives in Koenji, west of Shinjuku, in a narrow apartment that smells faintly of detergent and rain. She sorts receipts, hums under breath, keeps shoes lined like soldiers. Koenji repairs vending machines, eats convenience store curry, laughs too loudly. They're ordinary, kind and careful until they learn caution isn't refusal. Hey everyone. Japan keeps rules for the unseen. Don't whistle at night, don't step between linked torii after dusk, don't answer when a voice calls your name from behind. Most are invitations, how the living accept by accident. An opened umbrella indoors is less about luck than permission, than entry and passage. Hey everyone. Our story begins on a Tuesday soaked in neon and drizzle. Aya's office stayed late, spreadsheets flickered like aquarium light. She walked home past the shrine shortcut everyone avoids at night. The path is older than train lines, older than apartments, and it bends like a careful memory, waiting, tonight. Hey everyone. At the shrine, a paper lantern swung, although the air felt still. Someone had left an envelope on the offering box, cream-colored, stamped with a vermilion seal. Her name was written neatly in black ink, Aya Suda. No return address, only the smell of salt and old wood lingering nearby. Hey everyone. Kenji jokes that bills travel faster than ghosts, so Aya called him on speaker, laughing. He told her not to touch anything until morning. A priest would know, she promised, but promises weaken around invitations. She lifted the envelope anyway, its weight deliberate, almost body warm, undeniably addressed to her, carefully. Hey everyone. Inside, a card. Thank you for attending. Please come again. Beneath, a date, tonight, and a time, 11:42. The location line contained only a sketch. 3 torii in a row, a downward arrow, and a circle like a well. Aya swallowed. Kenji swore softly. Someone already believed she'd accepted. Hey everyone. This is where superstition gets practical. In Japan, invitations carry spirit as well as schedule. Reading aloud can activate acceptance. Responding with breath can seal it. That's why elders say fold letters once, don't breathe across offerings, and never repeat an appointment written by unknown hands at night ever. Unwise. Hey everyone. Kenji, stubborn and protective, insisted on meeting Aya at the station and walking her home without passing the shrine. He stuffed salt packets into his jacket pocket, the cheap kind from takeout meals, remembering a grandmother who threw salt after funerals. He laughed but kept them anyway, just in case. Hey everyone. The city set its nighttime rules. Ramen steam fogging windows, bicycle bells ringing thin, crows shifting like burned paper on telephone poles, odd-counted crossings, avoiding cracks near drains. Kenji texted timestamps like a dutiful bodyguard. 11:28, 11:35. The invitation's time drew nearer, lengthening shadows in intention, footsteps. Hey everyone. Here's the cultural hook. During Obon and other liminal nights, the boundary thins. Some invitations aren't requests, they're confirmations. Refusing isn't as simple as saying no. You must avoid the path that completes the ritual, or replace your attendance with a decoy. Salt, thread, cut hair, a borrowed name, silence. Hey everyone. Aya remembered childhood warnings. Never follow lights that move without wind. Never count the steps down to water. And if someone asks, "Are you coming?" say, "I'm already home." It's a charm against being escorted elsewhere, but charms require timing. The card's ink had not fully completely dried. Strangely wet. Hey everyone. At 11:40, Aya and Kenji reached the station entrance. Trains slowed like sleeping animals. The safest route avoided the shrine entirely, yet the map app kept rerouting them past it, insisting on shortest time. Phones are obedient. They obey invitations too, sometimes. Notifications bloomed like pale fungi anyway, insistently. Hey everyone. 50 meters from the torii, Kenji suggested a taxi. Both turned at the same moment. The lantern inside the shrine had stopped swinging. The envelope in Aya's bag ticked softly, like cooling metal or a small heartbeat. 11:42 approached. The question returned. Can you refuse and still stay, breathing? Hey everyone. Aya and Kenji stood under the weak glow of the station's clock, its second hand dragging. The city around them hummed with its usual midnight rhythm, subway brakes squealing, vending machines thudding, late shift workers trudging past. Yet both felt the atmosphere growing strangely hollow. Aya checked her phone again, its screen showing the time. They had 1 minute before the invitation's time. Kenji laughed nervously, stuffing another salt packet into his fist. "It's nothing," he muttered, but his eyes flicked toward the shrine. The torii were just visible down the road, red outlines cutting through misty rain. Aya held the envelope tighter against her chest, though she hated herself for touching it again. Something about it felt alive, almost like it expected her heartbeat to sync with its own. When the second hand on the station clock reached 12, the atmosphere shifted. The night grew too quiet. Car engines seemed to muffle, footsteps thinned, and for a moment it felt like the entire city inhaled together. Aya's phone buzzed once, though no notification appeared on the screen. The station's overhead lights dimmed imperceptibly, but enough for both to notice. At exactly 11:42, the sound of a low chime drifted across the street, not from the trains but from the shrine, echoing as though a bell had rung underwater. Aya and Kenji froze. Neither of them had touched the offering box, yet something was keeping track, as if attendance had been taken whether they liked it or not. "Hey everyone." The air pressed heavy as the chime faded. Aya whispered Kenji's name, though her voice carried oddly, like speaking in a tunnel. The shrine path gleamed faintly, though no lamps lit it. It was the same path she'd walked countless mornings, shortcutting to work, but tonight it seemed longer, deeper, foreign. Kenji tried to guide her toward a waiting taxi. The driver, leaning back with his newspaper, didn't move when Kenji waved. His face remained hidden, expression unreadable. Aya thought she saw his shoulders rise and fall, but the stillness felt wrong. It was as if the cab were posed, waiting for something. Aya tugged Kenji's sleeve, insisting they walk the long way home instead. Every step past the station felt like wading into water. The sounds of Tokyo at night, convenience store jingles, traffic signals chirping, thinned further behind them. In their place came something subtler, the faint shuffle of sandals across stone, though no one walked nearby. The smell of incense drifted in short bursts, carrying from no clear direction. Kenji unwrapped a salt packet and sprinkled it across the pavement, the grains scattering like sparks. For a moment the air felt lighter, almost breathable again. Aya thought of their grandmother, who once whispered that salt didn't repel everything, sometimes it only marked where you were standing. Still, it was all they had. She pulled Kenji faster, afraid of being too visible in the silence. Behind them, the taxi engine coughed once, then cut, though no key had turned. "Hey everyone." They crossed an intersection where the pedestrian light blinked red, though no cars passed. Aya's skin prickled, the usual pulse of nightlife had vanished. Even the ramen shop across the street had gone dark mid-shift, bowls of steaming broth abandoned behind its window. Kenji noticed first. The clock in the station tower still pointed to 11:42. It hadn't moved. Time had been caught, suspended. Aya gripped her brother's arm so tightly he winced. The invitation had specified not just a place but a time, and now they weren't leaving it behind. They were stuck inside it. Every instinct screamed to run, but where do you run when time refuses to move forward? A sound joined the silence, faint yet steady, water dripping in measured rhythm. Aya followed it with her ears, though her eyes saw nothing but dry pavement. Drip, pause, drip. Each drop seemed louder than the last, echoing around buildings that no longer felt solid. Kenji yanked her hand and pulled her into a side alley, a place dense with bicycles chained and forgotten. The smell of rust and stagnant rainwater clung to their throats. He sprinkled more salt, muttering curses beneath his breath. Aya whispered what she barely dared think. "Maybe they're waiting for us at the shrine." Kenji shook his head violently, but the way his face drained suggested he feared the same thing. If this was an invitation, then ignoring it wasn't escape, it was insult. "Hey everyone." Aya clutched the envelope as if crushing it might end everything, but when she looked down, the paper remained smooth and uncreased, as though resistant to damage. The vermilion seal glowed faintly now, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Kenji swore under his breath, suggesting they burn it, but the alley offered nothing. No lighter, no flame, only the damp smell of mildew. And what if burning counted as acceptance rather than refusal? Japanese stories often warned of that. Objects tied to spirits aren't destroyed easily. Fire sometimes only quickens their purpose. The air in the alley thickened, carrying the smell of river water, despite being far from any shore. Aya heard footsteps again, but this time she was sure they weren't hers. Soft, deliberate, approaching. Kenji tensed, ready to confront someone, but the bicycles rattled in their chains as if moved by unseen hands. Aya stared at the nearest one. The spokes turned once, twice, though no wind stirred. The chain clinked like a laugh. Her phone vibrated again. On the dark screen, words glowed faintly before disappearing. "You came." Aya nearly dropped it. Kenji saw nothing but her expression, pale and brittle as porcelain. The air behind them shifted, cooler, heavier. Neither dared turn, because in every story, that is when the price is collected. They ran, hearts drumming, toward the main road where lights still burned. For a moment, it seemed they had escaped the alley, but the dripping sound followed, closer, sharper, impossibly patient. Hey everyone. When they finally stumbled onto the main road, the city seemed alive again. Traffic lights blinking, vending machines humming, headlights moving steadily. Ayora leaned against a lamppost, panting, clutching her chest. Kenji spat curses between breaths, trying to rationalize. Maybe they'd imagined it. Maybe exhaustion played tricks. Yet Ayora pulled out the envelope to prove otherwise. The card inside no longer read the time and sketch. Instead, it displayed a single phrase in brushstroke characters. Refusal is attendance. She felt her stomach clench cold. Kenji grabbed the card, intending to rip it apart, but his hands shook too violently. The words smudged beneath his grip, staining his fingers as if the ink were still fresh. A breeze lifted through the street, but it carried no chill of September. Instead, it smelled unmistakably of wet stone and incense. Ayora tilted her head upward. For the first time that night, she noticed something hanging above them, faint but deliberate. The outline of 3 Torii gates projected across the street lamp's glow. Though no physical structure stood there, they stretched higher than any shrine arch, vanishing into darkness above. Ayora squeezed her eyes shut, but the image remained. Kenji tightened his grip on her wrist, urging her to move, yet her legs stiffened, because she knew what the phrase meant. The moment she opened that envelope, she had already agreed. The only question was where the path would lead, and whether Kenji could follow her there, or if the invitation had been written for one. Hey everyone. Kenji guided Aya along the brighter road, pretending the crowd returning from late izakayas could shield them. Neon blinked, buses sighed, a delivery scooter rattled past, but the air still tasted of wet stone. Aya kept the card folded inside the envelope, afraid the words would rearrange again if exposed. A convenience store stood open like a lighthouse, sterile and overlit. They stepped inside. Muzak chirped. Fluorescent tubes hummed with a faint insect buzz. Kenji bought a disposable lighter and a small pack of coarse salt, bowing absently to the clerk. The clerk's smile froze, then slipped. His gaze drifted past them toward the door, as if watching someone else enter. Aya glanced back. The sliding glass had opened, but no footsteps sounded. The heat strip over the entrance fluttered like breath. Kenji whispered that they would burn the envelope in the ashtray outside and scatter salt with the wind. Ritual without temple, intention without priest. They stepped to the smoking area beneath a plastic awning. Rain ticked softly. The lighter sparked on the third try. Flame touched paper. For a heartbeat it caught, edges browning, ink beading like sweat. Then the fire drew inward and went out, leaving the paper unscorched and cold, as though the flame had been drinking from a closed fist. Aya's phone screen brightened by itself. A new time appeared, 11:42. She hadn't unlocked it. Kenji exhaled hard. They were still inside the hour, and the door to elsewhere remained politely open. Step carefully. Hey everyone. They moved again, following a parallel street past shuttered bars and vending machines. Aya felt the envelope grow heavier, as if the paper soaked humidity others couldn't feel. She tried to hand it to Kenji. He refused, saying her acceptance might be personal, and crossing names could tangle things worse. Across the road, a salaryman paused to bow toward nothing. He adjusted his tie with trembling hands, then hurried away. Kenji muttered that people bow to anything in Tokyo: trains, cats, superstition. His voice lacked conviction. Aya heard the drip, but now it slurred into numbers, not spoken, more suggested. 3, 3, 2, 1, like a breath exercise learned in childhood. Her grandmother had taught one for funerals. Inhale on 4, hold on 4, exhale on 4, do not stagger. Tonight her breath refused the pattern. They reached a pedestrian bridge. Underneath, darkness pooled. Above, the sky held a faint rib cage of light where clouds thinned. Kenji scattered salt along the bridge's center seam, drawing an invisible line they could claim as boundary. Aya tucked a loose hair into the fold of the envelope and whispered her name backward, an old trick to send something home. The wind answered from beneath the bridge, smelling of pond scum and camphor. Shadows thickened at the stairs, not human shapes, absence shaped into posture. Kenji tried humor. They would outwait the invitation like stubborn customers. The metal rail cooled under Aya's palm. A child's voice, near, asked if she'd be late. She didn't turn. Hey everyone. They descended the opposite side and cut through a park famous for cherry blossoms that now stood as dark ribs against the sky. Sprinklers clicked distantly. The smell of wet earth rose in little breaths. Aya felt watched, not by eyes but by pauses, those holds between sounds when something waits to be acknowledged. At the park's center lay a stone wash basin used for cleansing hands. Though the water should have been off at night, its surface quivered with ripples that traveled inward, not outward, as if pulled toward a hidden drain. Aya approached. 3 leaves circled the drain point, then aligned in a row like boats preparing to pass a checkpoint. Kenji tugged her back, whispering that wells and basins belong to what lives beneath. Reflections become doors, and looking too long is a bow. Aya nodded, head aching. They skirted the basin and followed a gravel path toward a back gate. Beyond the fence, warehouses hunched like sleeping animals. A security lamp flickered. Her phone buzzed. The notification preview had no app icon, just a sentence shaped like caution tape. "You are late." Kenji took the phone, turned it off, removed the battery case, then froze because the model had no removable battery. He shut the screen and pocketed it anyway, muttering. From behind, the ripples reversed again, pushing outward now, tiny wakes tapping the basin's lip. Aya didn't look, but the basin answered with 3 hollow knocks, like a polite host reminding a guest to come inside. "Hey everyone." They reached the warehouses and found a side street with vending machines blinking in patient rows. Kenji fed coins into one, buying warm bottled tea he didn't want, just to feel a normal transaction conclude. The motor whirred, the bottle dropped, relief rose, then the machine coughed a second bottle, same label, same printed date, same tiny scuff on the cap. Kenji stared, understanding too slowly, repetition as omen, invitations echo until answered. Aya unscrewed the cap, intending to pour the tea over the envelope like a cleansing. The scent that rose wasn't tea, it was incense and river algae. The bottle's mouth steamed in cold air. She capped it immediately, hands shaking. A distant ambulance siren wound toward them, then flattened into a long tone that didn't change pitch, like a line drawn across a page. Kenji pressed his knuckles to the envelope and said they needed a counter-ritual, something respectful that also declined attendance. Their grandmother had spoken of substitution, leaving hair, nail clippings, a name written and folded 3 times. Aya plucked 3 hairs and twisted them with a grain of salt inside the envelope's fold, then traced a circle on the pavement and stepped back. For a breath, the air felt neutral. A mop bucket rolled from a warehouse loading bay, wheels stuttering. Water sloshed inside, though no one pushed it. The bucket halted at the chalk circle's edge and tipped. Water skated along the line without crossing. From within, something breathed in relief. For once. "Hey everyone." They followed the street until it rejoined the shrine road, unwilling, but drawn by the sense that wandering only tightened the loop. The Torii outlines hung above again, faint scaffolds traced in darkness. Aya realized they were not gates suspended in air, but shadows cast by something behind them. She turned slowly. Where buildings should have stood, an absence leaned against the sky, a shape that suggested a 4th gate lying on its side, like a bridge lowered to invite crossing. Kenji swallowed and asked, gently, if she remembered any rule about answering invitations that arrive with precise time and a map made of symbols. Aya nodded. "If you must go, go on your own path. If you must refuse, offer a route home." They couldn't vanish the card, they couldn't burn it, but there was one more exchange left. Aya removed her transit card, the one she used every morning, and slid it into the envelope with the hairs and salt, a ticket of her life, traded as placeholder. She whispered that she could not come, but her path would continue here tomorrow, at daylight, in the living city. The lantern within the real shrine flared and steadied. The outlines above them thinned. Kenji exhaled and took her hand. The clock on Aya's phone crept to 11:43. A minute released. Behind them, the basin knocked once, softer than rain. Ahead, a taxi light clicked on. The driver looked up and met their eyes like a witness. "Keep walking." "Hey everyone." The taxi idled at the curb, headlights throwing pale beams across slick asphalt. Aya hesitated. A ride home should feel safe, ordinary, a way back to morning, but the driver's stillness unsettled her. He wore a cap low over his brow, both hands folded neatly on the wheel, not moving. Kenji pulled her toward the door anyway, muttering that they couldn't keep circling all night. The back door clicked open by itself. Aya froze. In Japan, polite spirits open doors rather than slam them. The gesture can be mistaken as courtesy. Kenji urged her forward, but her body resisted. Knowing every story begins with a wrong seat taken, she bent to peer inside. The cushions were spotless, almost unused, but there was a faint depression on the far side, as if an unseen passenger already sat waiting. The air smelled faintly of camphor, the same scent used to preserve the dead. Aya drew back, shaking her head. Kenji tried to laugh it off, insisting taxis always smelled of cleaning solution, but his voice cracked. The driver finally turned his head. His eyes were closed, lids twitching faintly as if dreaming. He smiled without teeth, lips pulling too wide. Aya grabbed Kenji's wrist and yanked him away from the door. The taxi engine rumbled once, then fell silent. The headlights dimmed, leaving them again in the breathless dark of 11:42. The invitation was not in the ride, it was at the shrine. Hey everyone. They stood in the road, the shrine rising ahead like an anchor. 3 torii gates framed its entrance, wood darkened by centuries of weather, paint peeling in strips like old skin. The lantern flickered again, steady now, as if acknowledging their approach. Aya's legs trembled. Kenji muttered that they should just bow, drop the envelope, and leave, but she remembered the phrase, refusal is attendance. Simply showing up might already count. They stepped closer. The gravel path crunched softly, though neither of them moved yet. Aya glanced down. The envelope in her hand throbbed faintly with warmth, as though carrying a pulse. She whispered that maybe they needed to return it, not destroy it, not carry it away. Kenji scowled but didn't argue. They passed beneath the first torii. The air cooled sharply, the hum of the city receding behind them. Beneath the second, Aya's ears popped as though diving underwater. Her vision tilted slightly, lanterns stretching taller than their posts. Kenji cursed under his breath. Beneath the third, silence closed like a lid. The gravel no longer sounded beneath their steps. Aya realized the card had vanished from the envelope. Empty now, the paper sagged limp in her palm. The shrine's offering box stood ahead, its slats dark, wide enough for paper to slip through. Aya approached slowly, breathing shallow, and lowered the envelope into the slot. The wood echoed faintly, a sound too hollow for its size, like dropping something into a well with no bottom. The air thickened in approval. Hey everyone. Kenji tugged her back, eager to leave, but Aya's gaze caught on the shrine's honden, the main hall behind the offering box. Its sliding doors stood ajar. Shadows leaned inward, as though something inside breathed. She remembered the card's sketch, a downward arrow and a circle. Not just a meeting, but a place to descend. Kenji noticed too. He shook his head violently, saying no without words, but the pull grew undeniable. The gravel path extended toward those doors, though no one had swept it in years. Aya felt the air tugging gently at her sleeves, a kind of invitation dressed as wind. She stepped closer despite herself. Inside, faint chanting rose, toneless, syllables without voice, like memory of prayer spoken through water. Kenji blocked her path, begging silently with his eyes. Aya whispered that they needed to see, because not seeing left the invitation open forever. Kenji exhaled and reluctantly followed, both removing shoes at the threshold as custom demanded. Inside smelled of damp cedar and faint ash, though no incense burned. Tatami mats sagged. On the far wall stood a circle of polished stone, carved shallow into the floor, water trembling faintly within. Aya's stomach clenched. It was the circle from the card, drawn exact. The water reflected 3 torii above, though they stood behind her, not ahead. Kenji squeezed her arm. The surface rippled though nothing touched it. Aya leaned closer, unable to resist. From below a second face rippled back, not hers, not his, but waiting. Hey everyone. The reflection blinked, not with eyes, but with the water itself, shivering in 2 deliberate pulses. Aya stumbled backward. Kenji grabbed her shoulder, pulling her away, but the circle's water surged outward in a silent splash that left no dampness, only a chill across her skin. A voice slid through the silence, not audible, but inside her skull, measured and even. You are late. Aya gasped. Kenji's jaw tightened, eyes darting wildly. He had heard it too. The voice was not hostile, not kind. It carried the neutrality of a schedule being confirmed. Aya stammered inwardly that she refused. She could not attend. She would not descend. The water darkened, showing the path downward, stone steps spiraling below the shrine. Each step glowed faintly with salt lines, guiding, waiting. Kenji pulled her arm, desperate to flee, but the voice pressed again. Refusal is attendance. Delay is debt. You opened the door. Aya's mind burned with grandmother's old tales. Some invitations are traps of gratitude. You thank a spirit, you owe them. You read their note, you stand in their time. There was no, only yes disguised as choice. Kenji scattered the last salt packet across the floor. Grains hissed faintly, bright as sparks, forming a line between them in the circle. The water rippled, recoiled slightly, but did not fade. The voice whispered once more, softer now. Tomorrow then. The water stilled, reflecting only tatami and weak lantern light. Aya's chest heaved. Kenji exhaled shakily. They had been given an extension, not freedom. Hey everyone. Outside the night had shifted. The torii no longer loomed above in phantom outlines. The shrine stood ordinary, lanterns steady, gravel dull beneath their steps. The city's hum returned gradually. Traffic, laughter, distant music. Aya gripped Kenji's arm, both too weak to speak at first. When they reached the station, the clock finally ticked forward. 11:43. The minute had passed. Relief washed over them, but shallow, temporary. Aya felt the weight still lodged in her chest, the knowledge that tomorrow had been promised, not erased. Kenji insisted they go straight home. Draw blinds, scatter salt. Aya nodded numbly. On the train, passengers sat half asleep, swaying with the rhythm. Yet every time she glanced at the windows, she caught faint outlines of Tori reflected in the glass, vanishing when she blinked. At her apartment, she collapsed on the futon, shoes forgotten at the door. Kenji sat guard with tea cooling beside him, watching shadows slide along the wall. Neither spoke the rest of the night. Morning arrived like an unwanted visitor. Sunlight lit the room in harsh rectangles. Aya rose, throat dry. On her table lay the envelope she had dropped in the shrine's offering box. It looked untouched, its vermilion seal fresh, her name still inked bold. She stared until her eyes burned. Refusal is attendance. She had not refused. She had only delayed. And tomorrow had arrived with her name still written. Hey everyone. Stories like Aya's sound strange to outsiders, but in Japan, the idea of invitations from the unseen is deeply rooted. Shrines aren't just quiet landmarks, they're thresholds. Passing through a torii gate is considered stepping between worlds, even casually. That's why people bow before entering to acknowledge the crossing. But invitations add another layer. Receiving a letter, hearing your name, or finding something addressed directly to you means responsibility. It's a transaction. Once you accept, even by reading, you've already agreed. That's why Aya couldn't burn the envelope, why simply carrying it home didn't cancel the meeting. Her act of opening it was attendance. These beliefs tie back to centuries of Shinto and Buddhist thought, where spirits mirror etiquette. The living must follow rules of politeness with the unseen just as with neighbors. Refuse rudely, and you insult. Ignore too forcefully, and you draw attention. Acceptance, even unintended, means you owe presence. That's the true horror. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a glance or a breath, seals a bond you cannot undo. Hey everyone. Ghostly invitations appear in many forms across Japan. Some legends describe them as wedding requests, spirits inviting a living partner into the other world. Others are banquet calls, where food is served to lure you into endless feasting beneath the ground. The torii sketch Aya saw recalls the idea of sequential gates, where walking through 3 or more arches aligns you with an invisible path. Once aligned, you walk partly in their world. Even the time 11:42 fits. Midnight is not always the threshold. Often it's the moment just before, when the day still pretends to be normal. Numbers themselves hold weight. Certain times, like 4 or anything ending in 42, are unlucky, echoing the word for death. So the invitation wasn't random, it was designed. Cultural practices still reflect this caution. For example, after funerals, mourners scatter salt before entering their homes, to refuse spirits from following. Yet salt, as Kenji found, doesn't block every passage. It can mark where you stand, but it doesn't erase your name from a guest list. Aya's story reminds us that rituals can bend, but invitations are persistent. Hey everyone. The idea of refusal as attendance might sound like paradox, but in Japanese folklore it makes sense. Declining still acknowledges receipt, and acknowledgement equals acceptance. It's the same logic that makes certain ghost stories dangerous to repeat. Once you tell them, you've passed the spirit's name along, and now it recognizes you. That's why elders warn children never to say yes when called from behind at night. If you answer, you confirm you've heard, and the act of hearing becomes compliance. Aya's envelope functioned exactly this way. Even silence counted. She might have thought crumbling it or leaving it alone would free her, but the spirit had already written her name. In folklore, names carry fragments of the soul. Written or spoken, they become extensions of you. Destroying the paper doesn't erase the binding, it only strengthens the insult. This is why her grandmother's charms focused on substitution, trading hair or salt as placeholders, bargaining tokens for spirits to accept instead of the whole self. Aya understood instinctively, but too late. The moment she opened the letter, the balance had tipped. Hey everyone. What happened at the shrine reflects how temples and shrines often serve double roles. To tourists, they're cultural stops, backdrops for photos, but to locals, they're still living thresholds. Many avoid them at night. Even priests will tell you shrines belong to gods during the day, but after dusk, others take over. The circle Aya and Kenji saw resembles old Mizuba ritual water basins sometimes linked with wells. Wells have long been believed to house portals, where spirits climb upward. Children are warned not to count steps to a well at night because once you finish, you've completed the spirit's chant. Aya's reflection showed the danger. Once acknowledged, the other world reflects back more than your image. Kenji's resistance bought them time, but time itself is fragile in these stories. Notice how the clock stalled at 11:42. Folklore often bends time around invitations, creating loops until obligations are met. That's why the envelope reappeared in Aya's apartment. It wasn't a mistake, it was delivery completed. You can't misplace what belongs to you, and her name was still written bold. Hey everyone. So what does all this mean? On the surface, Aya and Kenji survived. They left the shrine alive, morning returned, trains ran, offices opened, but survival in Japanese ghost stories doesn't mean safety. Debt lingers. The invitation wasn't destroyed, it was only delayed. And delay, as the spirit said, is debt. That's the unsettling truth behind many Asian horror traditions. Endings aren't neat. Rituals may quiet things, but they rarely erase them. In real life, people still leave offerings for the dead during Obon, still scatter salt after funerals, still avoid shrines at night. These acts aren't superstition alone. They're survival habits passed down because people believe invitations are real. Maybe you felt it too. That sudden moment when your name seems called though no one's behind you, or when your phone lights up with nothing on the screen. Would you answer? Would you attend? Or would you try to refuse, hoping silence is enough? Aya's story warns us, sometimes the invitation already knows your name. Sometimes you're already listed, and in those cases, refusal only proves you heard, which means you've already arrived. Hey everyone. The envelope never burned, the time never truly passed. And maybe that's the way with certain stories, how they follow even when you think you've walked away. Aya learned that refusing can still be agreeing, that silence can still be an answer. Maybe you'll remember that, the next time your phone lights up at night with no sender, no message, just your name waiting. We've reached the end of tonight's story, but the night itself hasn't ended. Not here, not where you are. Ghosts travel quieter than footsteps. They linger longer than the voice that tells them. If the room feels heavier now, if the silence seems tuned to your breath, don't test it, just let it be. We'll leave Aya and Kenji where the shrine left them, carrying a debt that won't forgive the morning. But there are other debts, other nights, already unfolding somewhere else in Asia. Another invitation waits, another story already circling, and when you're ready, you'll hear it. So rest carefully, if you can. Keep the light steady, keep your answers quiet, and when you're ready to step into the next story, don't search too hard. We'll be waiting in the dark, already telling it. Hey everyone.